Welcome back. We got another episode of Let 'Em Ride coming at you. We're going to be going over the 4-game WNBA slate for Thursday, June 27th. We're going to break down and analyze each of those games. We're going to talk about which way I'm leaning as far as the points and the spread. And then any plays that I put in for these games will be down below in the pin comment later on. So don't forget to check back in. That way you don't miss out on any of those. And then to recap Tuesday between the Liberty and the Lynx for the Commissioner's Cup. Turned out to be a great game. Lynx win this one 94-89. Lots of pace in the beginning of the game. Very exciting to watch. Just didn't really help us out for our first pick. We had the Liberty team total under 84.5. That does not cash as they come in at 89. They had 50 in the first half. Like I said, they came out swinging. Defense did pick up in the second half, but like I said, we don't hit on that one. But we did have the Lynx +5. This does cash. So we split on the night 1-1. We are up 10.12 units on the year, sitting at 18-9 overall. So can't be mad at the split. It is what it is. We look to improve, though, and we hope to have a better night here. So let's get into these picks for tonight. For our first game, we have the Minnesota Lynx taking on the Dallas Wings in Dallas. And the Lynx are laying 9.5 in this one. We have an over-under sitting at 162.5. Now, Minnesota is coming off their 5-point win over New York to claim that Commissioner's Cup on Tuesday. They made a nice claim for the top team in the entire WNBA with that performance. Minnesota shot 48% both from the field and from deep. They knocked in 14 threes. Bridget Carlton had 6 of them alone. She had a great game, 6 of 8 from downtown, 23 points. Look, in my opinion, she should have been the MVP, and that's not to take anything away from Nafisha Collier, right? But Bridget Carlton had a hell of a game. It was a force on defense as well, and Minnesota's defense as a whole was amazing. They forced 20 turnovers from New York. And they come into this one now. They are 13-3 on the season. They are 13-4 to the number, counting that Commissioner's Cup. The Wings are at home in this one. They have the rest advantage. They're riding an 11-game losing streak in, though, and they've only been 2-9 to the number in that time. So, look, this would be a spot typically where you would be wary of a letdown performance from Minnesota, right? They're on the road for the second straight game, and they have the rest disadvantage coming off a huge win over who, in many eyes, were considered the top team in the WNBA. But this is only their third game in the last week, and are we really about to fade the Lynx against a Dallas team who is riddled with injury, riding an 11-game losing streak? This would be the crazy scenario. This is the type of shit that happens in the world of sports and sports betting especially, but there's no way in hell I am backing this current version of the Dallas Wings against this current version of the Minnesota Lynx. So I'll lean Minnesota laying the points, but I'm probably going to stay off the side on this one and just look to play the total if I play anything in this one. And in regards to that total, I'm going to lean over, but I'd most likely be looking at the Lynx team total over in this one. The Wings give up the most points off turnovers, while the Lynx force the most turnovers in the W. We saw them out in transition over and over against New York in that Commissioner's Cup game. And then Dallas, they also give up the most fast break points and the most points in the paint. Dallas has also, they've given up 87 or more in 7 of their last 10. So I think that Lynx, it's a team total over 86.5. It's at -105. I think that has some value for sure. Our next game, we have the Las Vegas Aces traveling to Chicago to take on the Sky. Aces are laying 10.5 in this one. We have an over-under sitting at 171. But the Aces, they've been rolling. They've won 3 of their last 4. And those 3 wins come over the Mercury, the Storm, and the Sun. And then that one loss, the Liberty. So these are all top teams in the W, right? And they are now 8-6 straight up on the year. They're only 5-9 to the number. However, they do come into this one with the rest advantage over the Sky. Vegas will have been off for 5 days in between action when these two teams tip off. The Sky, they've won 2 straight after dropping 6 of their previous 7. But one of those wins comes over an injury-depleted Wings team, who's been one of the worst in the W, as we all know. And then the other one is against a Fevers team that was up by 15 with a little over a minute to go in the third before blowing that lead en route to a 1-point Chicago win. So obviously, to all of our eyes, the Aces, that's the better team, right? But can the Sky, can they pull off another unthinkable upset like they did earlier in the year when they beat the Liberty? Or can they at the least keep this one to single digits and cover? So let's take a look at the numbers and see. So over each of these teams' last 4 games, the Aces and the Sky are ranked 3rd and 5th, respectively, in offensive rating, while the Sky are also 5th in defensive rating, and the Aces have been the 3rd worst in the W in that category over that span, despite their 3-1 record. Now, where Vegas struggles the most defensively is the perimeter, but this doesn't do Chicago any favors as they shoot the least amount of threes per game in the W. only 16% of Chicago's points come from three. That's the lowest in the league. Chicago relies heavily on scoring from inside and then from out in transition on the break, as 52% of their points scored come from inside the paint, and then 16% of their points come from fast break opportunities. Both of those are good for first in the W. Problem is, the Aces, they turn the ball over at the lowest rate in the W, and then they hold their opponents to only 33 points per game in the paint. That's good for third in the league. The Sky, they've also thrived off offensive rebounds that create second chance opportunities for them, but the Aces lock down the boards as well. They're allowing opponents the lowest offensive boards per game on the year, and then the lowest boards overall through their last 4 games. So considering every strength Chicago possesses plays right into the greater strength of Vegas, I think you got to look at the Aces here. The line opened at 8. It's ballooned up to 10.5. I mean, it was at 11.5. It came back down to 10.5 now is where it's at currently. But I think looking at the Aces and looking at them early, specifically in the first half, has some appeal. I think that's currently at 6.5. It might have dropped down a little bit. So, yeah, if we can catch that anywhere between that 5.5, 6.5 range, I like that for the first half there. And for the total, I could definitely see this one getting out of hand early and turning into a rout. But I see Vegas doing the routing. So I'd be leaning under, as I just don't see Chicago scoring a ton in this one to do their part to get up over that 170 number. That's a higher number. So I'm looking at the Sky team total under 79, actually. I haven't bet it yet, but I'm keeping an eye on that one. And keep an eye on the pinned comments to see if I pull the trigger on that. I really like that one. The only thing that's making me hesitant is this one turning into a blowout. And Vegas just kind of easing up some in garbage time and allowing Chicago that backdoor cash. But I do feel like this is a game where we see Chicago struggle offensively, however, and they might not even hit 70, in my opinion. Their two biggest strengths, as far as scoring the ball, are pretty much being neutralized by this Aces team. Next up, we have the Connecticut Sun taking on the Washington Mystics. Sun are laying 10, and we have an over-under sitting at 153. Now, both of these teams come into this game with 3 days off in between action. The Mystics will be at home for their third straight. No travel for them. And then the Sun are playing their third straight on the road in this one. They've lost 2 in a row now to a good Seattle team and then to a surging Vegas team as well. The Mystics won their last 2 in a row. Both wins were over a struggling Dallas Wings team. And they've won 4 of their last 5 with wins over the Dream and the Sky as well. Washington is 10-6 and 1 to the number on the year. And they've covered in 6 of their last 7, while the Sun have failed to cover in their last 3. These two teams, they've met twice on the year so far, both times in Connecticut, both times Connecticut victories. To me, this one is going to depend heavily on who's able to play and who's out. The Mystics have a ton of players listed on the injury report. We have Brittany Sykes and Shakira Austin still listed as out indefinitely. And Aaliyah Edwards and Carly Samuelson are both questionable as well. So if neither can play, I like the Sun in a bounce-back spot here to dominate the Mystics, like they've been able to do to these lower-tier teams of the league so far this year. But if Washington isn't struggling with depth and either or both of those players can play, I like their chances to keep this to double digits, or keep this within double digits and cover. So I'm not saying to go smash the money line or anything. I'm not saying that by any means. Don't run to the window and put your money in on Washington, please, over Connecticut. I'm not saying that, but the Sun haven't been the same team on the road as they have at home. They're only 3-5 to the number, and all 3 of their losses have come away from home. In their last 5 games, the Mystics have a net rating of 12.6 as well. That's second in the W. Now, this was again against Dallas, Indy, Chicago, and Atlanta. So it's not the toughest slate, but only the Lynx have a higher net rating over that time, like 12.6 net rating. It's not bad. So yeah, I guess, like I said, I'm waiting on the injury report on this one, so I'll just stay off this one altogether. But I would probably lean Washington with the points if like I said, if either of them that are questionable are able to go. For the total, I'm leaning under. In their last 5 games, these are the second and third ranked defenses, and the Sun have played at the slowest pace all season, no matter who they play. But until we know more on the injury report, like I said, it's just tough to make a definitive call either way on really the side or the total on this one. And for our last game of the evening, we have the Indiana Fever traveling to Seattle to take on the Storm. The Storm are laying 8.5 in this one. We have an over-under sitting at 167.5. Indiana's 4-game win streak was snapped in their last outing against the Sky, in which they blew that 15-point lead in the third quarter, like we talked about earlier in the video. Indiana has covered in 5 straight, however, but they are just 5-5 to the number and 3-7 straight up when they are on the road this season. And this is their 4th game in 8 days, while the Storm are playing their 3rd in that same time span. Seattle is 3-2, both straight up and against the spread in their last 5. They handled the Sun in their last outing. They held them to just 61 points in their 11-point victory. The Storm are 5-1 at home, and then they are 4-2 to the number there as well. So over their last 5 games, the Fever and the Storm rank 4th and 5th respectively in net rating. The Fever hold a 3.8 point advantage in that regard, although they have had an easier schedule in that time. The Fever are 3rd in the league in both field goal and 3-point shooting percentages, but the Storm lock up on the perimeter. They're holding their opponents to a 2nd best in the W, 41% from the field, and 4th best, 32% from deep. They're forcing the 2nd most turnovers per game as well, although the Fever have been efficient with the ball. They have the 4th least turnovers per game. Indiana has struggled on the road, and although they've turned a corner offensively recently, they still have a ton of issues defensively. They haven't beaten a team with a winning record yet, and in fact, the teams that they have beaten, it's as follows. Take a listen. The Sparks, the Sky, the Mystics, and the Dream. That's it. That's who they've beaten. That's who they've won against this year. So it's nothing to get too excited about. Now, they've played great. It's been exciting. It's been fun to watch. But we gotta pump the brakes. We gotta be a little cautious here, and before we start naming them with the elite talents of the league, and even with the good teams of the league, which Seattle is. So I'm going to lean Seattle here, and I'll probably take a look at that first half line and see if I can catch it a little lower than the 5.5 that it's been at here currently. That, like I said, it's been at for a minute. For the total, I'm leaning over. The Storm play defense strong on the perimeter, but the Fever struggle on that end of the floor, and Seattle plays at the 2nd fastest pace in the W, just under Vegas at first. So I like Seattle to control the tempo in this one, control the game at home, and pushing us up over that over. So just to recap everything we talked about, I am leaning the Lynx team total over 86.5, the Aces first half laying the 6.5 points, the Sky team total under 79.5, and then the Fever versus Storm over 167.5. And I'm just leaning these as of now. I haven't placed any of these bets yet. So be sure that you check down into that pinned comment later so you can see which plays that I actually do end up putting in. And you can see if you'd like to ride along with me, or maybe after you see those, you're going to say, man, those picks are some duds. And you might want to do the contrary. So whatever you decide to do, though, don't forget to put them down in that comment section for me down below so I can see where your guys' heads are at as well. I love reading those comments and seeing what you guys have cooked up. I love going back and forth and talking to you guys about it as well. So please drop it in the comments if you have the time. And if you enjoyed the video today, you enjoyed the content, if you found it helpful or useful in any kind of way, please don't forget to smash that like button for me one time. It's greatly appreciated. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. That way you don't miss out on any of the content that we're dropping daily. And hit share if you can. It's definitely appreciated. So that's going to wrap us up here for another episode of Let 'Em Ride. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'm going to catch you on the next one.